Hello, Andrew here again, and this is episode 107. We're still in the Sermon on the Mount, although we are coming towards the end. And today we're looking at one verse. It's Matthew chapter 7, verse 12, a verse that we describe as the golden rule. Now, I've come to believe that the golden rule is that whoever has the gold makes the rules, but I don't think that's the one that's intended here. Matthew chapter 7, verse 12. In everything you do to others, in everything, let's start that again. In everything do to others as you would have them do to you, for this is the law and the prophets. In everything do to others as you would have them do to you, for this is the law and the prophets. We mostly live reactively towards others. Upon meeting, we can scan how we're being received, whether it's positive or negative, what we imagine they might be thinking of us, if they're thinking of us at all. Do we matter? Are we safe with them? There is evidence that people decide on our trustworthiness in 1/10 of a second, and our sexuality in 1/20 of a second. When we make a whole series of judgments when we meet someone for the first time. Just invite you to think about that for a moment, and you'll probably see that it's true. A lot of it's because this person may remind you of somebody. There'll be things that you'll notice about them, and you'll come to a whole lot of conclusions, which may be right or may be wrong. There's a character that I follow on YouTube. He goes by the moniker of Beau of the Fifth Column. He's a very interesting man. He's a journalist from Florida. But when you look at him, you would think this guy is anything but a progressive. He's got this long, scraggly beard, and he wears a baseball cap, and he looks like he comes out of Kentucky or of the Duck Dynasty kind of place. And you can make this choice, and then you start to listen to him and think, well, hang on a moment, this is not what I was expecting. It's not at all what I was expecting. And so we can make decisions about people, we can make judgments about them and get them very wrong very quickly. But we respond and we react according to the knowing that we believe we have. In everything, Jesus says, do to others as you would have them do to you. For this is the law and the prophets. For some, it's do to others before they do to you. We're automatically in defensive mode. We're assuming the worst from the other. We're assuming that we're not going to get a positive reception, and if we might, it's neither here nor there. For some, it's the default to treat everybody with suspicion and be sure that they're out to scam us or get us in some way. And for others, it's simply an opportunity to assert their superiority, their power, their top dogness, right from the very start of meeting somebody. Yet Jesus, we see, is inviting us to front foot how we are with others, to positively front foot it, to irrespective of how we are treated, or perceive ourselves to be treated, or fear that we might be treated, we're invited to always treat the other as we would wish to be treated, presumably with generosity, with warmth, with respect, even though none of these things may yet have been earned. And it's as we do this that we're likely to get a reciprocation. So much of how we treat others or are treated by them is simply mirroring what we perceive is coming toward us. There's a lot of this, each watching one another to see what the other will do. And so we adjust our behaviour accordingly. Jesus invites us to get him first and to assume the best of the other, anticipating that they will treat us the same way. And even if we don't, even if they don't, we will not allow it to determine how we behave. It reminds me of a story of a gentleman, and he was a gentleman, middle-aged to late, and every day he would walked past the same bus stop, and by the bus stop there was a paper boy. You remember the days when we used to have paper boys? And every day he would buy a newspaper from the boy, and the boy would always be rude to him. He'd snarl, he'd be sometimes really quite nasty. But the man was always a gentleman. He would always treat the boy with dignity and with respect. And this went on for months, and the people at the bus stop would observe this little ritual every day, where the gentleman would come along, he would ask the boy for a paper, he would give him the money, and the boy would treat him with indifference, with contempt. Sometimes it was just awful to watch. And then one day one of the people in the queue had had enough. And after the boy had reacted in the same negative way to this gentleman, and the gentleman started to move off, this person in the queue stopped him and said, "Excuse me," he says, "I don't get it. I've been watching for months." And he says, "Every time you come along here and you buy a newspaper from that little tow rag, and he treats you appallingly, yet you continue to be kind and polite and gentle and generous with him. Why? Why?" And the man looks him straight in the eye and says, "I'm not going to allow a small, bent out of shape boy to determine how I'm going to live." It's a good one, isn't it? It's a good one. And so Jesus invites us to get in first and to assume the best of the other, anticipating that they will treat us in the same way. And sometimes, they will. And even if they don't, we'll not allow it to determine how we behave. In Marshall's literal interlinear of this verse, the translation goes as follows, word for word: "All things therefore, as man soever as ye wish, that may do to you, men, thus also ye do to them." You think, well, what was that about? What I wanted you to notice was the insertion of the word therefore. Therefore, which does not appear in the NRSV, which I read from, or in the NIV, which has been my usual translation. This indicates there's a contingency, there's a condition about Jesus' command. It flows from what comes before. In this case, if you remember yesterday's episode, we had an exposition of the generosity of God, contrasted with the pale human reflection of that generosity. Therefore, because God is so generous, in every way so kind and compassionate, so for you, because God is so generous, therefore, treat others as you would have them treat you. Because God is like that. It's an invitation to imitate the generosity of God. Not only are we being asked to treat others with generosity, with the generosity that we might wish to be treated with. We're being asked to do with the generosity with which God treats us, of which our natural tendency to generosity is but a pale reflection. There was a 2000 movie called Pay It Forward, and it picks up some of the sense here. There's a schoolboy, Trevor, who is engaging in a school project which he's been asked to do something that's going to make a difference, a positive difference in the world. So what he decides is that rather than living reactively, waiting for others to do something good for him or for us, and then reciprocating, he's going to take the initiative and do something good for someone else, simply suggesting, when asked, that they in turn do something good for 3 other people. So he does. He sees a need and he immediately goes to fill it, and this person's kind of blown away. And when explained, even if one person does something positive for something else, he starts something new. He does, in effect, pay it forward. He's not paying it back, he's paying it forward. And a movement is started. Isn't kingdom living a movement? And we're called to participate in it now. It's a kind of pay it forward movement. based not on reciprocation, not on whether we're going to get anything back, but on initiation of good towards others, reflecting the generosity and goodness and kindness of God towards us, even when we've done nothing to deserve or justify that goodness. There's a kind of pay it forward kingdom ethos that we've got here. Because this is not about who we are or what we are. It's about who and what God is. And reaching toward others, it's not because, I've already read that. And it's also because of who we're becoming, and are consequently invited to join God's kingdom living project in transforming the world. Paying it forward is a way of doing that. God's business of transforming the world. But wait, there's more. If we take Rob Bell's model of cliques, we see that Jesus is taking humanity a radical step forward. Rob Bell has this concept that when somebody's at position A, God's intent for that person is to take them to position B. And God's intent is always to move us forward into a more generous, a more kind, a more open understanding of God and God's world. Love is the underlying basic principle. And so he doesn't take somebody who's A and moves them to M or to Z. He just takes us each and just moves us a step forward. And so the lex talionis, the eye for an eye, is the kind of negative thing that we've seen. You know, if somebody does you bad, you do them bad. But Jesus is saying here, before someone does you bad, you do them good. You do them good. He's moving us forward into something that can actually change how we are. The lex talionis is still the basis of our legal system in 2020. It is when you think about it. Yet here is Jesus in the first century inviting us to take a huge step forward, and rather than an eye for an eye, to treat others with the dignity, the respect, the love, the gentleness, and the mercy that we ourselves would like to be treated with. God bless you.